Okay, if everybody would, let's stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, it's nice to see a big crowd here today. Maybe we'll have something interesting to talk about. Looking for a motion to approve our agenda, please. Thank you, Randy. I need a second.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Public comment. Nobody signed up. We got a bunch of public here. Anybody want to get up and talk? Tell us what's going on? Just come up to Mike here and tell us who you are, and if you, we'll be glad to listen.
I failed to do the one thing that I know I should have done, was sign in, but thank you for letting me come up and speak. I'm Sheila Franklin, and I had the pleasure of meeting some of you coming in and running for county commissioner, but I serve at Fletcher Town Council, and so I appreciate everything that you do, and would appreciate your consideration and an opportunity to talk to you at any time. Congratulations on securing the property, the dairy farm, and it looks like you've got some great plans for that as well. I've got an event coming up for Mills River residents, in particular at the community building on Tuesday from 6 to 8, and would love to talk to folks. I think that you'd probably find, after having some conversations, farmland preservation and things of that nature are on my mind as well. So I've had 3 debates so far, but I still enjoy just getting out and talking to individuals more than the debates.
Is it just kind of a drop-in situation, or you just want to get everybody in there and then say a little spiel, or what's your plan?
It's funny when you do these things that some of them just have you just get a different environment. And so it seems like the meet and greets that I've been going to will have just an informal Q&A. We have some refreshments, and then when it kind of calms down a little bit, I may say a few words and then give them an opportunity to, ask questions, because what I'm seeking is to find out what's on the mind of residents. To me, the quality of life and meeting resident needs is paramount as to having a position. So that's what I'm looking to do, and hope to answer questions for anybody that's wanting to know what the difference is.
That sounds good.
So I just want to make it a little bit better than what we have.
Awesome.
So thank you for an opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll move it along. Approval of our consent agenda by motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Jeff. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sandra. Any discussion on it? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? On to our regular agenda, our reappointment of our Agriculture Advisory Committee, Dan Schaefer, term expiring 3/10 of 24. Do we have any applicants?
We do not.
That's what I
No
thought.
applications on file.
Council's pleasure is to reappoint him. He's been on since the
Since 2006.
2006.
He is.
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Dave Schaefer for another term on the Agricultural Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Sandra. Second. Thank you, Randy. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, moving right along. Our grant contract on our Meadow project. Who's going to lead us in this one?
I will take the lead on that one, thank you.
Okay.
As many of you all know, we have been working for about the last year to convert the old hayfield down by the river into a more native wildflower meadow. Because it's going to be beautiful, and it's also going to be great birding habitat and pollinator habitat, we are eligible for a $15,000 reimbursement for that project through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So I have attached to your packet a contract that we would need to sign. So essentially, of course, there's always stipulations to everything. And for this, really, the stipulation is that we would have to promise to keep it as a pollinator habitat for the next 10 years. So I have that there for you to review. To me, this is a great opportunity. Is a project you all have already funded. We have already paid out to meet our match. So that money has already been expended. So it's just a good way for us to get reimbursed for those funds. Councilwoman Gu did bring up a good point to us that if Hooper Lane does get widened, would that affect this grant? I did call Laura Fogo with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. She saw absolutely no problem with it. She said we wouldn't have to pay back the money if DOT came and took that. She said if it did make us feel better, we could adjust the contract to say 13 acres instead of the 14 acres, just to make sure we have that covered. So, as I said, if we want to go ahead and in the contract, just make it that we'll still plant 14 acres, but the contract will say we only have to keep essentially 13. So that way, if we ever do that widening
Okay.
and DOT has to take a stretch of that we can make that adjustment. So I'm happy to take questions, comments.
Do you feel pretty confident that 1 acre would do that as long as that strip is?
We already had built in an acre, so that gives us 2
Okay,
acres.
gotcha.
So yeah, I feel pretty confident.
Any other questions for him?
So there's basically 2 options for us to be able to maintain this. Mow it once a year, or work with the North Carolina Forest Service and do a prescribed burn once a year, and that is it. So it's very minimal. There's also provisions in there for natural disasters. So if we get a flood that really somehow washed, in reality, a flood's probably good for it. It's gonna re-put some stuff in the soil, but we would be under no obligation to pay. Only if we decide to dig it up and actively remove it would we have to repay the funds. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be a big issue for us. No.
And I looked at, that seems to be the perfect land for that down there because it does flood periodically. The only other question I had was in here, it says that Mills River will be responsible for the signage for the plants and stuff. Any idea on what kind of signs and how much that's gonna cost?
Yeah, it's approximately $4,000, and they'll match. That was already part of the original budget. That's already been approved, so that's not any additional funds that will come and ask.
Okay.
That's already been set aside. We just haven't made those purchases yet until the project's done. And they'll match. If you've seen the ones we've done for the riverbank restoration work and wildlife, it'll be just like those. They'll be pollinator specific for education. Yeah, you're welcome.
Anything else? Daniel, have you got a chance to look this over and you feel good with it?
I have. I'm comfortable with it, and your attorney's looked at it as well, and she's comfortable with everything in there.
All right.
They are planning on planting this soon, aren't they?
Yes, the original plan was for Monday. The weather's not looking promising this weekend, but our hope is to still get it in next week. So it's just gonna be weather dependent.
Are you doing that with the drill from Henderson County or private?
But the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has a drill, and they're
Yeah.
coming to drill it.
So, what happens if a flood comes and a lot of noxious weeds come in with it? At what point do we determine that you got to start over, or you can't for 10 years?
As long as we don't actively remove the seeds that are there, so as long as we don't go in and spray it, there may be times, we know we're gonna have invasives where we just as staff, like we have almost once or twice a year where we have like invasive species days where we get volunteers to come in and help remove. There may be some of that kind of stuff, but we don't have to actively, as long as we don't remove what's there, essentially. Other things may work their way in. And we'll probably want to manage that anyway, just because it won't be pretty. We already get tomatoes that grow after floods that we've washed. Probably, yeah.
Is the reimbursement contingent on the actual seeing the success of the crop, or is it just upon signing of the contract? So if it doesn't rain for 2 more months and we have a crop failure, but we'll be paid up front, and then I guess it's incumbent upon us to
As long
replant
as
if
we put the
necessary.
seeds in the ground.
Anything else? Hearing none. Need a motion to approve, deny this, or deny this, grant application.
And if you would
Contract.
authorize the manager to sign as well,
Okay.
please.
I'll move that we authorize the town manager to sign U.S. Fish and Wildlife landowner agreement and accept a $15,000 reimbursement for the Meadow project.
And make it up for the manager to sign with your motion. Be okay? Second? Thank you, Sandy. Any more discussion on this? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. When staff gets caught up, we'll hear from the finance director, town clerk.
Actually have no report tonight.
Arlie, tax collector.
You have your report in front of you as of January 31st. We've collected $3,557,704.24, which is 96.01% of the levy, as opposed to 95.92% from last year. We have less than $150,000 to collect.
Awesome.
That's,
Great job.
delinquent bills went out last week. We've had a really good response for that. So I'm hoping our percentage will be increased pretty well by the end of the year.
Any questions for Arlie?
The number of delinquent letters, more or less than last year?
It's about the same. Yeah.
Like what's the ballpark number?
About 550.
Is that all from you?
That's all I have.
Okay, Nicole, Parks and Rec.
Yeah, we've got lots of stuff going on. So this Saturday, now again, weather dependent, so keep an eye on our social media and website. We're doing a skills assessment for our tennis lessons. So if there's people that have been interested, not sure, maybe played a little before, not sure if you should be beginner, intermediate, our coach will be out here doing a skills assessment to let you know where you should fall within tennis lessons. And the tennis lessons start the week of February 19th. So that'll be this Saturday at 2 p.m., weather dependent. Also coming up, February 16th is a school out day for the kids. So in this room at 11 o'clock, we have Animals of Appalachia coming. So we'll have all sorts of cool animals that kids can come see on their school's out day. Should be really fun. Saturday, March 9th, we're going to do a kids fishing day here in the park, which will be our big kickoff to our Type of Lunar program. We had spots for 50 kids. They are all full, and we have a wait list of almost 50 more. So we're looking for more volunteers. We're looking to see if we can maybe extend our day a little bit. So if anybody wants to come volunteer that day, please let us know, so we can maybe accommodate some more folks or look at doing another day. Other than that, we got a few fitness classes. We have our dance class. We've got a Couch to 5K program coming. And it's also, believe it or not, time to think about spring and Easter, brunch with the bunny. Easter's early this year, so sign up for that early.
I mentioned Michelle when I was in one day that typically the month of March is no trout fishing. They're okay with it?
Yes, yeah, we
Okay.
have been working very closely, and
Okay.
this is we don't have jurisdictional water, so there's basically no rules in
Okay.
our section of the Mills
As far as
River.
fishing.
And then we are stocking just for this event,
Okay.
and they've permitted all of that. So
Good
we're
deal. Awesome. I just want to make sure we
Yeah.
had everybody covered and got nobody in trouble.
No, we're good.
I didn't want to set them up. That'd be bad. Okay, when you get a minute, I see our plan director's off, so you got anything from him?
No updates from the planning department to share. I will just mention that we're coming up on budget time. March 8th is your visioning session, and it's a Friday. So be thinking about any particular things you want to make sure that we include in the budget for next year. And send those to me if you can. Otherwise, we'll keep the conversation going moving forward. That's all I have to report.
Do you know what time on March 8th?
I don't think we've set a time. 9 a.m. I would plan for that.
Okay, if that's all from him, council comments. Anybody got anything?
I'd like to say thank you to all the residents who went to the county special meeting for the future of agriculture. We had a wonderful showing there. I think the council out there was kind of surprised at how many people did show up. I think they had more than 200 people there. And Mills River was well represented. James and Jeff both went. Jeff got up and spoke for the residents, and then Paul Shoemaker from the farmers market went and spoke, and he is retired from the is it the extension office up there?
Mountain Horticultural
Mountain
Crops
Horticulture.
Research Center.
Right. And he also spoke for the farmers markets, and I am glad that the small farmers got recognized as big as the large farmers did, because they're all important. The small farmers help feed the communities and the town, and the big farmers feed the community, the town, the state, and the United States. So I hope that we can get a lot of support continued for the agricultural community of Henderson County. And on that, I spoke with Daniel this afternoon, and he said that they did hear from the contractor who looked at the building down here. Do you want to explain what he
Sure.
said?
Park staff met with the structural engineer this week to review the footers of the shed over there that we were looking at. And I'll leave the engineering lingo to the engineers, but suffice to say that it's not up to a commercial code at this point, so it wouldn't be wise for us to be sponsoring something that happens underneath that facility until it's either brought up to code or addressed in some other way. Is there anything other than that to share?
No, he will issue us an official report, but we know a lot of people have been, hanging on this, so we just wanted to get the information out there before we get our official report from him that has all the details.
In the report, or did he mention that anything that might be done to bring it up to code?
I'm going to ask Jeff Moore if you're willing to stand up for a moment, please. Jeff and I spoke briefly about this before the meeting tonight. I think there are options. It's always going to boil down to time and money as the big factors.
Good evening, Jeff Moore, Schoolhouse Road. I did come out yesterday when the engineer was here and looked at it myself and listened to him a little bit. One of the concerns is, from, in my opinion, the town's perspective, if we use that building for anything, it needs to be up to a code. And when it was built, codes were different and uses were different. So the footings they're pretty small and they're not attached. Usually, and I understand a building like that, the load causes the columns to move outwards. So it's typically done with like a piece of concrete with rebar in it, holding those footings together now. This doesn't have that. There's no evidence that there's any linkage between that. So could the building be brought up to code? Sure. The question is how much? Is it worth it? So that's something I understand the engineer is going to be looking into, is what should be done based on an inspection and without getting too deep into it and damaging anything. If we really dig around those footings, we upset what the footings were put in there for. So we got to be careful with that. But just a ballpark idea of what could be done, what would it cost versus, and then I don't know that would be in his scope to come up with what a similar building would cost, but knowing him, he's pretty flexible. He'd do whatever. But it may come down to it would cost X amount of money to keep that building and bring it up to code, or X amount of money to have a similar building in a better location, more accessible, etc. And then it would be up to the town. One thing that myself as an engineer would be afraid of, if I'm not afraid, but I'd be very cautious about an existing building saying it's safe and then a storm come along and blow it down. So, if it's up to code, it should be fine. But then again, that the building's got a lot of life. It's lived a good life and a hard life, and there's evidence, kind of like me. When you look at me close, you see that, been around a while. So that's my understanding. Is his report is going to contain some things that we need to do to bring it up to code, and maybe a ballpark figure. So, any questions or anything?
Anything for Jeff while he's up?
mean, you would, as mentioned previously, it'd take a really good cleaning
Oh, I'm sure.
because that dirt isn't just dirt.
No.
It's some recycled vegetation, I believe. So, and it's got some trash in it. So even come get some free cow manure, you may get more than just free cow manure, like pieces of rebar and other stuff. But anyway,
Thank y'all for looking into
well,
it.
sure.
We do want to say.
Well, I know you do, and it's so important. I'll echo how proud I am of the farm market. It was something that my bride and I discovered about 2 years ago. I wish we started when we first moved back to Mills River, and when it first started. But that's kind of how that's part of our routine now is we go by the farmers market and say hello to some really good people and get some really good stuff. So, thank you.
And I'll just, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I'll just add in, I wanted to thank John Case. He volunteered his time to come out and dig those footers up for us. So once he got on it, they were done pretty quickly. So thank you.
Something else I'll throw in, I had spoke with Mark Case, John's brother, and if we decide to move, to repair or take down, Mark Case said that him and his sons would be interested in working on it for the scrap out of it.
Okay. Yeah, I would, on any and all of that, my thoughts on that is we need to make sure with Sharon that she's okay. We'd want to make sure with our insurance also, because, heaven forbid they catch something on fire, they get hurt themselves, they injure someone else, they leave someone out there that somebody didn't know about and got on it. Not to say that they would, but I just want to make sure as the 5 of us and our staff and the whole community is protected from any accidents. That's what I'm looking for. Anything else? You got anything else? Anybody? Nope. James? All right. Well, believe it or not, this is almost a record, especially for this group. And motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, we got one from James. Second. Randy. All in favor?
Aye.
Wow.